Happy Thursday. It is an early Prop Queen pod today and a mini pod. I'm the Prop Queen, Ariel Epstein. Thanks for all that's tuning in on this very short slate of Thursday games. I'm going to jump right in because we've got Major League Baseball starting in about 10 minutes, and I've got one prop. I'll go through all 4 games in Major League Baseball today. We've got NFL preseason as well. There wasn't really anything that stood out to me on the WNBA slate. I couldn't get Coach James Young, unfortunately, because he's very busy today. Afternoons are always really tough to grab people last minute because we're usually a 5 p.m. show. And I've been on VSiN all morning from 7 to 10 a.m. And then I have to go on again at 1 o'clock. So we are doing a mini pod today. Just getting you some Major League Baseball stuff ready to go. Steve Merrill from WagerTalk going to join the show as well to help us talk some more MLB. And we'll also break down some NFL preseason with Steve too. This early game today, starting in a few minutes, Athletics at Nationals. Athletics lefty Jacob Lopez over 5.5 strikeouts. He's gone over this in 2 of 3 road day games dating back to last year, including against the Dodgers last year, he had 6, and against Kansas City this year, he had 9. Lefty's averaging about 5.5 strikeouts a game against Washington. Lefty Nick Lodolo and Framber Valdez since the All-Star break had at least 8 strikeouts against this Washington team that's been struggling. So that's the first strikeout prop of the day. Over 5.5 Ks, Jacob Lopez for the Athletics. That game, it's about to start, so I just wanted to make sure that you guys got that game before it started. I am leaving for Boston shortly because I have to go cover Premier Lacrosse with Kelly in Vegas, which will be super fun. We just posted, actually, that you could join. We're going to be picking one lucky winner to come for free to Premier Lacrosse, all 4 games this weekend. Kelly and I will be at all 4 games starting Friday in Boston. So if you're in the Boston area, you have a chance to win this Premier Lacrosse access. Just comment below that you want in and we can grant it for you. So make sure to comment and whatnot. I have 2 dogs sleeping here next to me. It's so cute. And we will make sure to get you guys in the running for it. It includes seats on the 50. It also includes a meet and greet after the game with some of the players. And, of course, free access to all 4 games. And we'll be hanging out and having a blast in Boston this weekend. I just took a little power nap, too, because, damn, waking up for VSiN at 7 or 5:30 in the morning was rough. Let's see. 8 to 10 every... What is people commenting? 8 to 10 every night. I don't know what this person says. Let me just retweet the show. Live early today for a mini pod. Steve Merrill joining as well. Let's break down MLB and NFL. Yeah, so mini pod today. NFL preseason, there are a few thoughts I had, and I'll get Steve's thoughts as well. So, let me see. NFL preseason. So 3 games today. We've got the Colts at Ravens, Bengals at Eagles, Raiders versus Seahawks. So some news and notes. The Indianapolis Colts are going to have in their quarterback, Anthony Richardson, starting today. And they're going to do like a swap to see who's better, him, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones week 2 will be heavier load. Ravens head coach John Harbaugh is 45-17 in the preseason, 40-21 against the spread. However, last year, Harbaugh 1-2 straight up and 0-3 against the spread. Baltimore has Cooper Rush and Devin Leary. They're fighting for the backup role, which probably is going to Cooper Rush, but Devin Leary does not want to be on the practice squad again. Daniel Jones, Riley Leonard be backing up Anthony Richardson potentially. But the Ravens, they only carry 2 quarterbacks, so you know that they're going to be fighting Leary, Lopez, 7+ Ks. I said over 5.5 Ks for Lopez, so I gave that out earlier. Anyway, the Colts are laying 6, and that just feels like way too many points. Obviously, these quarterbacks are not going to be playing the entire game, so it just feels a little bit too much for me. This isn't a homer play, but at this rate, it just feels like take the points or don't lay them. Like, don't lay the 6 with the Colts. They just suck all around. Bengals at Eagles. They announced that their starters are going to get a good amount of playing time, but mostly Joe Burrow in that offense will play more week 2 against Washington. So I have 3 dogs here that I'm trying to figure out. Week 2 against Washington's mostly when they're going to play. So again, the line really moved too much. The Bengals opened at +1.5. Now they're at -6.5. It was just way too much of a move because what? You're going to see Joe Burrow start for one drive and then that's it. So you're going to move a line from +1.5 to -6.5 solely because Burrow's starting the game for like a drive. Zach Taylor, 3-12 straight up and against the spread in the preseason. Nick Sirianni, 3-7-2 straight up, 4-7-1 against the spread in the preseason. Eagles will be focusing on their backups a lot. These dogs, you guys get to travel with me because nobody is here to help me out with the dogs today. And Marley really shouldn't be out on her own, but here we go. It's only a half hour. Hopefully that they are okay. God, this is going to be a disaster. Not really. Oh, the Amazon truck is here. Yeah, they love it. Well, the worst part is that in a couple of weeks, I get to do this for 3 days with these 3 dogs. They're insane, especially because the puppy can't really be trusted, but we're just going to go with it. Anyway, Bengals, Eagles. Again, I just think this line moved too much. I know that there were some places that had a 6. Eagles backups, Tanner McKee, Kyle McCord, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Again, they didn't specify how long the Bengals starters would be in, but for a +1.5 to a -6.5 move, it just seems like a lot of points to be moving for them to probably in Cincinnati not have more than like a drive or two that Joe Burrow would be alive for. Raiders versus Seahawks. Mike McDonald said he's not going to start his starters in game 1. Sorry for the dogs. Pete Carroll said that everyone's live. And he's going up against his former team, Geno Smith's former team. Now they're with the Raiders. We need the Amazon guy to leave. This is a disaster. Oh, boy. Okay. Anyway, sorry, everybody. So Pete Carroll actually 26-19-1 against the spread in the preseason as a head coach. Mike McDonald 2-1 straight up, 1-2 against the spread. Seahawks could be playing Drew Lock as well. So that could be interesting since he's a solid backup, especially in a starting situation. Again, Pete Carroll says everybody's live. Not sure if that means Geno Smith's live or not. But just something good to note. I thought -4.5 for the Raiders wasn't a bad play solely because it's a revenge spot. And we all love a good revenge spot, especially with Pete Carroll making his return to being a head coach in the NFL. Trying to make a statement maybe in the first start. This is a huge test, though, for Mike McDonald because I think we're going to really find out if he's a head coach or not. And obviously, he was last year. But some people were saying they don't feel Mike McDonald has really had a successful stint so far. And sometimes people think that people are just better coordinators. These dogs are insane. We have one dog, Jax, who's really nuts. The other two, the girls are here. The girls are doing great. They're quiet. They're fine. The boy, crazy loon. Crazy loon. Raiders for sure, Joseph Rodriguez says. I wish we had props, but we don't have props yet. There were some props that stood out to me, though, and I mentioned this when I was talking about when I was on VSiN this morning. So a few props that stood out when it came to season long. Justin Herbert, over 3,600.5 passing yards. He's gone over this in 4 of 5 seasons. Jim Harbaugh just made Trey Lance look like a great quarterback since he threw for 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the Hall of Fame game. The Chargers got back their wide receiver, Keenan Allen, so he's going to go next to Ladd McConkey, which is a nice compliment for the veteran. Justin Herbert over his passing yards seems pretty good. Mike Evans, his receiving yards prop for the season is 950.5. It's a number he's gone over in every season. Obviously, you have to worry about injuries, but you can make it low every year, and I'll still continue to bet this over considering Mike Evans and his quarterback, Baker Mayfield, want to make sure all the time that he is getting over his 1,000 yards, which is something that he's done for like the last, however many years? 5 years? Every year of his career, pretty much. So Mike Evans over 1,000 yards, hell yeah, every time. Sam Laporta's prop also stood out to me season long. It's 675.5. Laporta had 889 and 726 receiving yards in his 2 years, and you're giving me a 675.5. That's way too low and super fishy. So I would just tell everybody on Sam Laporta, stay away. Maybe it's an under, but something is up with that number being like 100 yards less than his career low. I don't like it. Anyway, joining the show now, somebody who has been around the gambling world for a very long time. We've only got 4 Major League Baseball games. One's already underway, and we've got NFL preseason. So let's get his advice, because he saved me today from coming on this show on such a short slate. Very last minute. I was like, Steve, do you happen to be in your office today? I need a guest. I need someone to help me out, because there's not much else I could talk to the audience about today. So Steve Merrill joining the show. Steve, thanks so much for coming on.
Loaded Thursday, August the 7th.
Beyond.
No, hey, ask away. Whenever I'm available, I'd love to jump on the show, and I happen to be here today, so it worked out well. Always ask. If I'm not here, I'll say I'm not here, but love to do it otherwise.
You're also filling in for me on Last Call on Saturday, right?
Yes, I was. Kelly asked me a couple of days ago, so I know this is the calm before the storm. Take a look at Ariel. This is the before picture right now. You'll get the after picture on Sunday, Monday, maybe, whenever you return.
I took a power nap for about a half hour before, because I was on VSiN this morning from 7 to 10 a.m.
Whew.
And then I have to do with Mike Palm at Circa at 1 o'clock, his podcast. And I just was like, I'm going to slide this in and leave for Boston right after Mike Palm's show. And then we're throwing like a party tonight at our friend Chris's house. So it is going to be insane starting tonight. I'm very nervous, but it's okay. I'm used to it, I guess. Steve, thanks for filling in. Thanks for coming on today. Let's talk NFL preseason first. So you've been around the space a very long time. What is your advice to people betting on the NFL preseason?
Yeah, so I started in August of 1996 as a full-time professional handicapper. So this is now my 29th anniversary.
Wow.
And
almost 30. We got to celebrate.
Yeah, I was going to say the big 30 next year. Well, this is technically my 30th football season, Ariel.
Wow.
So so if you look at it that way, it is the 30th, because this is actually my 30th NFL preseason as well. I started in 96. So this will be the 30th season I've been handicapping football as a full-time professional. And of course, I was following it before that as well. It has obviously changed. We're talking about 4 decades I've been following the NFL preseason. Back in the mid-90s, the internet had just come online. It was kind of a gold mine of information, and we just crushed in the NFL preseason because you literally would get information that other people were having trouble to find. I'm not quite so old that I remember trying to grab the newspapers off the airport planes, or the airplanes at the airports in McCarran in the early 90s. That's before the internet, when there were actually sports bettors that would go there to try to get local newspapers off airplanes to get the quarterback rotations. Back in the 90s, 2000s, it was about getting the information. Nowadays, it takes 2 clicks of a mouse to know what the quarterback rotations are, who's playing, who's not. So now it's what you do with the information. But the one thing that's remained the same now for 4 decades is you want to know the quarterback rotations, and you want to know which teams are trying to win. And there are some teams that try to win, but it's normally teams that have a quarterback competition, something else going on. And I think the first game on the board tonight, the national TV game hit NFL Network, the Indianapolis Colts against your Baltimore Ravens. Now, if I told you a couple years ago Baltimore was at home and the line was 6.5, how many houses would you have bet that the Ravens were the 6.5 point favorite? And even then, we would have taken
up until last season. They always were.
And what was it? Was it 17 straight wins? How many did he win before he finally lost? I knew it was at least 17.
I forget how many wins it was, but I do know that John Harbaugh is 45-17 in the preseason straight up.
But since that win streak was snapped, he's been a money burner against the spread the last couple years. So something has changed. And he's an example of a guy that was making an effort to win for years. The sports markets caught on, still couldn't price it high enough. Baltimore opened as a 1-point favorite in this game about a week ago. I did WagerTalk today on Tuesday with Andy Lang. We broke this game down. There's a free 10-minute video clip of it on WagerTalk TV on YouTube. The line was 4.5 at that point with the Colts, and now it's 6.5. The reason is because they've got
at some point it gets to be too much.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is now. What would be interesting there is if it hits 7. Now, the preseason's a little different. Teddy Covers talks about this all the time, that we don't have as many key numbers. Teddy says 1 and 2 are more important than 3 in the NFL preseason. I haven't run the math on that recently. I get what he's saying because teams go for 2. They don't want overtime. You're not going to get 3s and 7s as much. But I still think 7's a pretty key number because, the way NFL scoring happens, 3 and 7 are very likely margins. So we'll see if it gets to that key number of 7. The problem is, though, you handicap games based on information, and then you want to find line value, right? The information all favors Indianapolis. And quickly, the reason why I say that is because these teams scrimmaged earlier in the week. They had a joint practice. Harbaugh said they're going to rely on that film more than this game. That kind of tells you all you need to know about his mindset. And then the Colts have a true quarterback rotation battle for the starter spot with Jones and Richardson. And that means they're going to both play the entire first half, maybe into the second half. Keep in mind, you only have 3 preseason games.
Didn't they say they were switching the two of them up, though? Like Richardson in the first game, Daniel Jones the second game?
Yeah, I still, we'll see if they both play tonight. They are going to alternate them the next 2 weeks. So whoever you get tonight, you're going to get the other one starting the next game. But if they do play them both, you think they're going to want to put backup linemen in there and get them injured. You're going to want to have your receivers in there still. So I think that's why we see this line continue to climb. The information, the situational spot screams Colts, but like you said, has it gotten to the point now where there's not much value left? I think it's 7 or more. Maybe you could start making a case for the Ravens. It's the Colts or pass for me, but I'm not a big fan of laying 7 points.
Devil's advocate, the Ravens only carry 2 quarterbacks, and it's Cooper Rush versus Devin Leary. So those two also somewhat have a competition.
Well, and I like where you went with Cooper Rush. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's not going to play, but Cooper Rush is an NFL starter. So I think that's the one reason you could make a value argument now with Baltimore, let alone the fact that Jim Harbaugh had won like 17 straight games and the best winning streak in the history of the NFL preseason. You're getting him as a touchdown home dog now. Problem is he hasn't made that effort the last couple of years, and he literally, like I said, came out and said we're going to rely on the training camp scrimmage and film the other day more than this game. But I do like where you're going with Cooper Rush. Do we maybe dare play the over 36 in this game? Last week I did a free play video at WagerTalk, got over 9,000 views on a preseason free play video clip. I was not expecting that. Wow. I guess I need to start doing more preseason. But I mentioned the over in that Chargers-Lions game. It was at 33 and a half. Now, yes, it landed 41, but the Chargers did it on their own, 34-7. But what's interesting, Ariel, I pointed this out, over the last decade, if you blindly play over 37 or less, you've hit like 55, 60%. If you play under 37 and a half or more, you've hit like 56% of the preseason. And why 37? Well, as you know, that's a very key number. I talk about 3 and 7. About 5% of the games land on 37, 41. And back in the 90s, when I started, we saw 37s and 41s. We never see that again in the regular season. I get that. But 37 is a sneaky key number. Just do the math, 20-17. A lot of things get you there, common results. So history says at 36 or less, there is maybe some value with the over here. By the way, the first half line, I was going to say that might be the best play with better quarterbacks out there. 17 and a half juiced over, 19 and a half elsewhere. So they're kind of onto that theory as well.
Bengals at Eagles is the next game of the night. I saw that the Bengals announced their starters would get a good amount of playing time, including extended action for their quarterback, Joe Burrow. Said, though, they would focus more on week 2, being when their starters play a lot more. The Eagles focusing on backups. Both of these head coaches, Zach Taylor and Nick Sirianni, struggle in the preseason, both below 500. Thoughts on this game between the Bengals and the Eagles? Who the Bengals also, by the way, plus 1.5 moved to like -6.
So you talk about motivation, just a quick rule of thumb. Teams that did really well the past few years probably don't need to win in the preseason. Super Bowl champ Eagles, case study of that, right? Teams that have underachieved maybe have a little bit more motivation. I don't know if the Bengals fit that category or not, but here again, we've seen a substantial line move in this game. And the first half line I want to talk about as well. This reminds me a little bit of the NBA playoffs here, where you almost see a first half line like as full as the full game itself. So the reason this line has been moving towards the Bengals is head coach Zach Taylor is changing his pre-straight season strategy. He's opting to play his starters, including Joe Burrow, in this first game for several series in the first quarter. And that's one of the reasons we have seen a line move fairly heavy on this one on the Bengals. So once again, you're bucking the situational angle with an unmotivated Philadelphia team that's got nothing to prove in the postseason against a Bengals team that's going to play their starters at least the first quarter. So first quarter, first half lines are worth a look. But once again, the odds makers have kind of caught on to that.
Going back to the last game real quick, Eddie Perez over on YouTube. What's up, Eddie Perez? You just found our channel. What's going on? He says, do you think Cooper Rush plays 1 quarter or a half?
That's a good question because, it's not like he's the starter. He's a starter caliber quarterback, but obviously there's no competition. The competition's really for the second spot. You would have to think Cooper Rush has the edge being a veteran. And I would think they're going to want to see the youngster a lot more. but wouldn't be shocked to see him go till the half. Normally what you see back in the day when we had 4 preseason games was week 3 was always the dress rehearsal, and they would play guys until the half into the third quarter because the logic was they wanted them to come out of the half after the locker room adjustments and get another series, like a real game. What's really gotten tricky, and I didn't mention this earlier, is now we only have 3 preseason games. Some teams treat week 2 as the dress rehearsal. Some treat week 3. So we don't kind of get a clean handicap anymore like we used to maybe a decade ago. And now Joe Burrow, the starter's going through the first quarter in game 1 tonight, which you never would have seen. But this is really kind of like game 2 back in the day. I think Cooper Rush goes into the second quarter. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes a little longer. And that's once again why maybe you could take a flyer with the Ravens if it gets up to 7, or maybe even the first half, as you have 2 decent quarterbacks out there for both teams. Another reason I probably would lean towards the over at 19. Not a lot of value, unfortunately. I would have liked it at 17 or less, which is a very key number. But I do think there could be some value with the over that Ravens game, just due to the fact both teams have starting caliber quarterbacks most of the first half.
The last game of the night, Steve, is the most intriguing game. You've got the Raiders and the Seahawks. Very rarely do I say, ooh, preseason, this is a fun matchup. No one cares. I care because Pete Carroll is back as a head coach in the NFL for the Raiders. And they gave us Raiders Seahawks against his former team. Not to mention that Seahawks former quarterback Geno Smith is also now playing for Pete Carroll on the Raiders. As much as preseason doesn't really matter, at Pete Carroll's record of 26-19-1 in the preseason against the spread, they are laying 4.5 against the Seahawks. There is some incentive to just stick it to them, no?
Yeah, the betting markets think that, right? They opened actually as a dog. This is just like that Baltimore game. Raiders opened as a 1.5-point dog last week. Now they're a 4.5, even 5-point favorite in some spots. And, once again, a lot of that is based on the information you just talked about. By the way, I mentioned that Cincinnati game. The line was 6.5. The first half line was 6. That's why I made the NBA playoff reference. Like we see home teams down 0-2 in game 3 of the NBA playoffs. They always are a bigger favorite in the first half of the game. Same thing here. This line is 4.5, 5. I'm seeing some 5.5s, even a 6 out there now. At one of the sharp offshore books for the first half line. So bettors are starting to play more first halves. We have more of them available now in the preseason because, once again, the second half is so random. It's kind of like baseball, right? You get the uncertainty of the bullpen for the second half of a game. So people play first 5 inning lines. And basically the full game is being priced based on the starter information in both the Cincinnati and this game, the Seattle game, the Raider game, as both the Raiders and Bengals are as big, if not bigger, first half favorites than the entire game. So it's kind of like handicapping a baseball game based on the starting pitchers. You're only getting half a handicap. So there's 2 different ways you can play it. But yes, as you said, it looks like the Raiders have motivation here. Geno Smith, Pete Carroll, a lot of other reasons to stick it in the betting markets feel to seem like they will do it. It is a home game for Seattle. And that's what's a little strange about all these situations tonight is that all 3 road teams are more than a field goal favorite, almost a touchdown favorite. Shows you how little home field matters. With that said, Ariel, home teams do win more preseason games than road teams in general. The reason, of course, is because they normally maybe try a little bit harder at home in front of their home fans. If the game is close, maybe they try to get that win. Also, with only 3 preseason games, does that change? I really think, to be honest, that's been the biggest thing that's made it a little more difficult to handicap the last few years, is that we only have 3 games now, as strange as that sounds, because coaches are just approaching them differently now. Like nobody took game 1 serious back when they had 4. Now you got starters playing tonight into the first half, even almost till halftime.
Absolutely. I think it changed a lot when we saw the landscape change, but I also think we're seeing, it appears like John Harbaugh, the Ravens head coach, doesn't want the Ravens to throw it all out there for this record in the preseason, and then they end up losing every year in the regular season. Yeah. That became the bugaboo. And especially in the playoffs down the stretch. And then it comes to the Bengals. Well, they get off to slow starts every year. So now Zach Taylor's trying to see, well, if we play in the preseason, maybe we won't get off to a slow start this year. There are so many things to keep in mind when it comes to the preseason, but quarterback depth, as you mentioned, the biggest one. Steve, let's get into some Major League Baseball today. Already have 1 game underway between the Athletics and the Nationals, but 3 other games: White Sox, Mariners, Reds, Pirates, Marlins, and Braves. Any action you got in any of the 3?
Yeah, a little bit of an ugly card. I will tell you something I posted for free for everybody on my page at WagerTalk.com. I post a free play every day at WagerTalk.com, so check it out. And today's free play is the 6:40 Eastern matchup between the Reds and Pirates. I went with Pittsburgh. Didn't make my best bet card because it's around $1.60, Ariel. I'm not a huge fan of laying more than $1.50. I try to be very price sensitive during the baseball season. But hey, look, the fact of the matter is if you pick the winner in baseball, it doesn't matter in the short term, right? So anybody is looking for a game out of one of the 3 games tonight, I do think Pittsburgh is a solid play. I see them winning this one. And a few reasons. First of all, Skeens is on the mound, as good as anybody in baseball. And it's actually a pretty reasonable price to get Paul Skeens at only minus $1.60, in my opinion. I mean, this is a guy, if he was on a better team, going back to the 90s when I started, I still think maybe the most dominant run I've seen the 29 years I've done this now has been Pedro Martinez in the late 90s when he was just unstoppable. And he'd be going off at 3, minus 340, minus 400, So to get a power pitcher like Skeens at minus 160, I think is very reasonable. Brady Singer going for the Reds. I project him to have an ERA around 4.5 tonight. And it's a huge starting pitching edge here. Now, once again, you could look at that first 5. That was the theme of the NFL preseason we just talked about, right? It's pitcher dependent here because I definitely like the Pirates more early in this game than I do later. Right now, minus 160, minus 165 full game. Well, guess what? First 5, minus 190, minus 200. DraftKings minus 230. Not to slam DraftKings, but that's a 55-cent split. They're minus 230 plus 175. Johnny the Greek and I have talked a lot about this. I'm sure you've heard him mention it when you've hosted last call. Sportsbooks offered a 55-cent split because bettors play it, right? Don't do it, people. Like, come on, start shopping around and get better numbers than that. And I like DraftKings. I like FanDuel. I love all the legal sports books, but our betting market has to get smarter. Even one of the offshores I'm looking at right now, minus 200 plus 150. I mean, that's just criminal.
The people that I know who are just very public bettors, they stick to a sports book. They don't like to allocate their money to multiple books to be able to find the best line. They're like, oh, I like the way this app looks. I'm just going to use this book. And people don't understand like how important the shopping is.
It's insane. And I do a lot with the financial markets, as you know. I do like back testing. I make correlations between the two. And the one thing I love about the financial markets, it's just so much bigger. And I'm hoping the sports markets get there in the next 5, 10, 15 years. Gianni and I have talked about this as well. I'd love to see like an exchange model, right, where it's minus 101 each side. And it just has tremendous volume, like a Betfair over in Europe has done for 30 years. But the reason it doesn't happen is because our market is too novice right now. It's the wild, wild west. Sports bettors don't understand value. And it's insane when you can open 4 or 5 accounts, literally divide your bankroll into at a minimum, you should have 2 accounts. You have a 50% better odds of getting a better price on every bet you make this entire football season by just having a second account. You have twice the chance, 50% better chance every bet. 3 or 4, I think 4 or 5 are optimal. It is diminishing returns after a while, especially nowadays since everybody's within a half a point, or a couple cents. But it's inexcusable not to have 2. So just start with 2, right? That's all I ask because you're doubling your chances of having a better line. If you get 3 or 4, then it's 33, 20. You're not as much likely to have a difference. But yeah, you're right. Put all your money in one app, not just take 5 minutes to open a second one. Probably get a bonus, get some free money by doing it. And then you can check both lines. What I would recommend doing, go to WagerTalk, Live Odds, or I use Odds Logic. There's a link for a 7-day free trial on my page for oddslogic.com/SM. It's that simple. That's the premium service. We can look at 30-some books, monitor it for a few days in baseball, the games you're using, and go, where would I have had a much better price? And then if you start seeing maybe a book or two that always has a better price or they're different, those are the ones you want to have. You don't need a book that has the same line. So you want one that's kind of a public book, one that's kind of a professional book. But yeah, go to oddslogic.com/SM. It's a 7-day free trial. You'll get 30-some books on your screen. You don't have to do it now. Maybe wait until football next month. But it's so important. It blows me away. Or once again, to date myself, I did a money management article back in the late 90s when I started.
I was going to say, you should do a YouTube.
Well, so Kelly and I did a clip on this, actually, and I mentioned these 3 factors, but there are 3 keys to winning in sports betting. And the third most important is picking the right team. That's not even the top 2. It's money management, number 1, and shopping for line value. Now, money management is number 1 because this is an absurd example, but to make a point why it's number 1 without a doubt, if you bet 100% of your bankroll on every game and go 99-1, you still go broke. So, and I know that's crazy, but money management is number one. It trumps everything. Shopping for line value is number two. Now, it's not the same as when I started in the 90s, because I used to be able to find 2 or 3 point differences in every basketball and football line. It was insane. Nowadays, like I said, it's a half a point at most. But when I used to be able to get 2 or 3 point differences, you could flip a coin and just play the best number on any game and come out at 53, 54%. So picking the right team is third, and that's what everyone focuses on. So once again, get a book, and I really should have 3 or 4, but it's inexcusable. But real quick, that article I wrote 30 some years ago, I put, it amazes me that people will shop to save $50 or $100 on a VCR or a computer. I have to update that a little bit. Now it'd be not even a DVR player. I completely missed that whole decade.
That with?
But TV still Plaza, right?
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, you're saving on every bet you make. I mean, think about if you're saving in baseball 5 or 10 cents, which is very easy to do if you have 2 or 3 books, on every single play you make over a couple hundred plays. Even if you go 50-50, you're saving 5 or 10 cents. That's 5 or 10% on every loss. Do the math. Pays for a lot of things.
Steve Merrill, you play for a lot of things. You give us winners all the time. Thank you for NFL preseason bets. Thank you for MLB. Go check him out over at WagerTalk, and he's going to be filling in on Last Call on Saturday for me. Steve Merrill, thanks again, and good luck tonight.
Thanks. I will try to make you proud on Saturday. Meanwhile, you and Kelly make me proud in Boston all weekend. I'll be following along on social media. The Prop Queen.
Oh, yeah. Follow along, everybody. We will be going step by step through this mayhem. Hopefully we're back live.
Step by step. Wasn't that a what's Marky Mark's group? Not the Backstreet Boys. Oh my goodness. What was it? That was
this stuff.
What's the name of the girl? My goodness. Marky Mark's brothers group.
Funky Bunch. Good vibe.
Chat's got to be blowing up right now. How am I drawing a blank on this? You're too young.
I don't know. I'm probably too young.
Marky Mark's.
Good Vibrations was.
Yeah, that was his solo. His brother was, Donnie Wahlberg.
Oh, New Kids.
New Kids on the Block. Wasn't Step by Step one of their songs? I think.
New Kids.
Bobby Brown had a song, Step by Step. That'd be very ironic if you just said a New Kids on the Block song talking about Boston. That was my point. I got way off tangent there, and
you quizzed me on things that see Funky Bunch. See.
No, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch was Good Vibrations. That was his solo. He wasn't in New Kids. Donnie Wahlberg, his older brother, was.
Yes, Donnie.
Yeah, Mark was young at that time. Step by Step, I think, might be a New Kids on the Block song. So that's pretty ironic that you mentioned that. We'll leave it at that.
Step by Step song.
I was trying to get the chat.
New Kids.
I was trying to get the chat to blow up, and I completely forgot the name. It worries me now.
My friend would know. She's like a diehard New Kids person, so she travels with them everywhere.
Who is?
My friend, a friend of mine from North Carolina.
I know some of those type of people.
Yeah, they have a whole crew. They're like blockheads.
Yeah, they have I think they've had a cruise even. I know a friend that went on the NTKB.
They're doing a Vegas thing now.
I think that's a group I never liked. I never liked them growing up. I have listened to them maybe once in my life. Couldn't remember their name, obviously, but I'd actually probably go see it now in Vegas. Things change. You start respecting when they're still hanging on in their 40s and 50s. You start to respect it a little bit.
Hey, my parents saw Aerosmith in 2007 while my mom was 9 months pregnant with my brother, and to this day, that would have been freaking awesome. But okay, Steve, gotta let you go because I gotta hop on Mike Palm's podcast. But Steve, good luck tonight.
Thanks, Ariel.
Okay, a little bit more Major League Baseball to get to, and then I've got to hop off because Mike Palm is waiting for me from over at Circa. The only other prop that stood out to me today was Carlos Carrasco over 3.5 Ks. I don't always trust him. 3.5 is just very low for facing a Marlins team that 11 of the 14 righties to face the Marlins since the All-Star break had at least 4 strikeouts. And the Marlins are averaging just under 5 strikeouts a game against righty starters this year. So for Cookie, it just felt a little low. A few matchups to look out for today. So I will share my screen with you guys so you could see them. Share screen. Let's see, where's my Gmail? These are some of the matchups to look out for. So you could go under for Tommy Pham, who's 2 for 10 with a double against Brady Singer. Isaiah IKF, 429 batting average, 6 for 14 with a double against Singer. And Brian Reynolds, 2 for 10 with a double, 3 Ks against Singer. Andrew Benintendi hitting 357 with 4 doubles against Logan Gilbert, and Luis Robert Jr. 2 for 11 with a home run and 4 Ks when going up against Logan Gilbert. So those are some matchups that you could look out for today in Major League Baseball, from a prop perspective at least. I'll go through other things about these games. So at 4 o'clock, you've got the White Sox and the Mariners. I haven't really seen too much line move today. The White Sox let's see if it moved now. Seattle was minus 290 last night. Now they're minus 300. The total stayed at 7.5. A few things that they say about this game. Josh Naylor is doing well. He homered and stole 2 bases in each of his first 2 games this series. In 12 games since joining Seattle, Naylor is slugging .500 with 3 homers, 6 ribbies, and 10 stolen bases. He had 11 steals in 93 games with the D-backs. Naylor is one of 4 players since 1900 with a home run and 2 stolen bases in consecutive games, along with Ichiro and Ricky Henderson and George Sisler. That's crazy. Naylor has tortured White Sox pitchers in recent years. Since the start of 2022, he's batting .379 with 11 homers, 15 doubles, 40 RBI in 41 games versus the Pale Hose. So Josh Naylor tonight, you could be looking at him going up against the White Sox. The Mariners are going for a sweep. J-Rod is slugging .670 with 10 homers, 18 ribbies, 19 runs in 22 games. But his numbers recently have not been great at home, but you can keep a look at that. Lennon Sosa has homered in each of his first 2 games this series. The 25-year-old slashing .410, 4 homers, 11 RBIs in 11 games. So you could look there for Sosa. Let's see. Shane Smith, the White Sox starter, is making his second start since returning from the IL with a sprained ankle. He gave up 2 runs in 4 1/3 innings against the Angels in the first start back on Friday. Smith will face Eugenio Suarez again after hitting him on the hand during the All-Star game. Damn, forgot about that. Let's see what else. Luis Robert, as we mentioned, he's hitting .329 with 15 ribbies, 19 runs, and 8 stolen bases during his 22-game on-base streak. He's 1 steal shy of his 100th career steal 2 days after hitting the 100th home run of his career. So something to look out for there. Edgar Caro since July 1st, hitting .323 with 3 homers, 7 doubles, 9 ribbies. So those are some players in the 4 o'clock game coming up that you could look at for some props. Let's see what else. The reason I didn't like Paul Skeens strikeout prop, 7.5. Cincinnati, they average close to 5 strikeouts, but they're very like hot or cold. So can't really get a read on that. Skeens is also always overpriced, so I don't really have much interest there. Cincinnati's remaining schedule is the toughest in Major League Baseball, so keep an eye on that. The Reds have won 4 of 6 against the Pirates this year, dropped 2 of 3 in Pittsburgh in May. See if there's any prop stuff interesting. Reds-Pirates matchup gave us 2 of the most dynamic. TJ Friedl's hitting .438 since coming off paternity leave. Spencer Horwitz is hitting .414 with 2 home runs and 8 ribbies over his last 9 games as well. Denver Marlins and Braves tonight, the late game. You've got Heriberto Hernandez, who homered on Wednesday against Houston. He's hitting .282 with 3 homers, 8 ribbies in his last 11 games. Xavier Edwards had a 4-hit game on Wednesday, hitting .337 with 10 ribbies and 19 runs scored over his last 25 games for Miami. 24-year-old Graham Pauley, who attended school in Georgia, by the way, just 20 miles away from Truist Park, hitting .304 with 4 extra base hits in his last 11 games. And Jacob Marseille, who has reached base in 5 of his last 6 games in the majors, batting .438 with as many walks and strikeouts and 5 extra base hits. Yuri Perez making his 30th start. He's been pitching really well. His .166 opponent batting average is amongst the best starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. Let's see what else. Perez was 7 months old when 16-year-old Carlos Carrasco signed his amateur deal with the Phillies in 2003. Oh my God, that's crazy. Michael Harris is thriving since he adjusted his hands. He homered Thursday and is hitting .357 over his last 21 games. Chris Sale's going to throw a bullpen session on Thursday, so just keep an eye on that. So those are all the different edges in today's games for Major League Baseball. Sorry, I'll catch up to the chat. Eddie Perez says he's been doing well in the W. I didn't love anything in the W tonight. I was trying to look on props.cash, but I couldn't find. So if you want to tail Eddie Perez blindly, he likes Alyssa Thomas over 8.5 rebounds tonight. Yeah, 10 stolen bases for Naylor is insane. Naylor's body type doesn't scream stolen bases. I know, it's crazy. Braves are bad this year. They're very bad this year. I'm just looking at all the new kids on the block stories. So yeah, anyway, the only play that I kind of looked at was Carlos Carrasco over 3.5 Ks tonight. I didn't really see any other line movement. The Pirates were -178 last night. They're -172 today. Total went from 7.5 to 7. Miami and Atlanta. Oh, that one moved. No, not really. The lines moved a little in favor of Miami. -118 last night, -122 today. I kind of lean Miami in that spot just because Yuri Perez has been pitching so well and the Marlins have been hitting well, and I don't trust Cookie Carrasco. And the Braves are home dogs because it's Cookie Carrasco. Do you do any NFL fantasy drafts or MLB DFS? Not as much here because we do a lot of sports betting, but we will be talking about a lot of different player props in the NFL that I guess could help you with your fantasy draft stuff. But I will be bringing on some guests. I do have some friends of mine that do that. So if that's of interest to people in the chat, I definitely could bring on some fantasy experts. I have a lot of friends who are fantasy experts because I started in fantasy and then transitioned into sports betting. So I think that could definitely be something we can add to the show as we get closer to draft time for NFL fantasy. Nice to meet you, Eddie Perez, by the way. We love to interact with the chat. Usually the show is 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern time, but because of all the short slate and afternoon baseball games, it just made the most sense to come on this afternoon before I leave for Boston. So with that said, I am going to Boston. I have to be there for Premier Lacrosse, so I won't be doing shows until Tuesday. Friday to Monday, I'll do the PropQueen.com newsletter. So you could go sign up on the PropQueen.com newsletter. Basic or premium, $8.99 for basic, $17.99 for premium. I'll be giving out all the prop edges over there on the newsletter. I just can't get on air because we have to be at all of the Premier Lacrosse games this weekend. And then I'm going to be traveling on the other days, like I am today. Follow along on social media. Kelly and I are going to be insane. We are going to be at 2 games Friday, 2 games Saturday. I'll see her later tonight. And don't forget, we just posted it to social media as well on my page, Ariel Epstein, her page, Kelly in Vegas. If you are in the Boston area, you have a shot at getting chosen. If you just comment on our video, you could be chosen for coming to Premier Lacrosse games with us this weekend. We're giving away 4 free tickets to the 50-yard line and a meet and greet with the players after. So it would be a really fun experience for you guys to come and join if you are around for in Boston to come to Premier Lacrosse this weekend. Good luck to those bets tonight, and I look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday and interacting with you all on social media. See you guys next